everyone, welcome to another edition of SuperNova Commencements. I'm Kashi Sehgal, and we are very excited to have all of you with us today, all the graduates, the class of 2020, anybody else joining us. We're in for a great talk today, and I want to bring on our guest today, Jeff Hilimire. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing great. So everyone, Jeff, we're so lucky to have Jeff. Everybody's all about entrepreneurship these days. Well, Jeff is the ultimate entrepreneur and nonprofit leader. He is the CEO and is it head of Dragons, Dragon Army, which is an agency that he started. We'll talk more about that. He is a founder of lots of nonprofits, Ripples of Hope, which we'll get to, 48 and 48, which has had an amazing impact for startups. And he's an author. So there's lots of ways that he can give you advice today. So let's dig in.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Jeff, where did you go to school, and do you remember who your graduation speaker was?
For college?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I went to Stone Mountain High School, so I grew up in Atlanta, and then I went to UNC Charlotte for college, and I have no idea who who the speaker was at my graduation. I wish I had had anybody that you've interviewed on this before me. They were all amazing, but I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Well, so you obviously didn't start in Atlanta. Well, you started in Atlanta, left, and then came back. Tell us a little bit about your path. Like, how did you get back to Atlanta? I know you started a company really young. Why did you decide to start that company? Kind of give us a little bit of your story.
Yeah, and it's probably why I don't remember who spoke at the graduation, because I started my first company in college in my senior year. I was a computer science major, and I fell in love with building websites. And my roommate and I just were building enough websites. We said, why don't we start a company? I was always going to move back to Atlanta. I grew up with a big family. And so the idea that I wouldn't be around them as I became an adult just wasn't on the table. So I came home and built the business from Atlanta.
That's great. So that was in like 1998, I believe?
1998, we started the company. 99, moved back to Atlanta.
So that was like the tech bubble, right? The first one?
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow we missed it though. We didn't benefit from it, and we weren't helped. We didn't get hurt by it. We were like out in Snellville, which is sort of way outside of Atlanta, building our little website company. And for like 3 or 4 years, didn't know what we were doing. We were 22, 23 years old. And by the time we started to hit our rhythm, it was like 2006. And so we missed it all. I think we were oblivious.
So, but actually you sold the company. You did quite well. What was it like being so young and, having that first success that so many entrepreneurs really look for?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind. The first 5 minutes, like a lot longer. The first 5 years were real hard because, my partners and I, we had never even worked at a company. And so we were not only trying to figure out how to build a business, we were trying to figure out what the agency industry, which is, the industry we're in, building websites and email campaigns for businesses. So it was really hard. I amassed over $100,000 in personal credit card debt, juggling one credit card to the other, which I don't recommend. But it was the only thing I knew how to do in order to keep the company going. And then the final 5 years, so we were 10 years before we sold, we doubled every year until we got to 75 employees, and then we sold. And so there were definitely times being young. We were told, like literally the first time we pitched Chick-fil-A, who I worked with over the years, many, many times. The first time we pitched them, they literally said, we really like you guys. We just want to work with you when you're a little bit older. That's what they told us. So there were times when the youth was, but it also helped because we were oblivious. We just kept running. And I think from an entrepreneurship perspective, it's very helpful to have that sort of youthful ignorance, because you just keep marching forward. You don't know anything different. And so then in 2008, we sold the business to a private equity firm, which, yeah, was very exciting.
I'm sure. So Jeff, you talk a lot about purpose, and I'd love to get a sense, and I'd love for you to tell the students why purpose is so important to you. How did you get into this way of thinking? Have you always felt this way, like that purpose was something necessary that you needed to guide you? Were you always guided by something? Or I know you've more clearly defined it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was 35, 36 before I found the power of purpose. I was chasing, I realized that I was chasing success, and I was chasing the next accolade, and I was, selling my business, joining this board. I was doing all these things that really other people were telling me were a sign of success. And then I went through a program called Leadership Atlanta. And an early part of that experience is Race Awareness Weekend. And you spend 2 days breaking down walls and barriers with your 80 classmates. And through that, I sort of emerged with the first time understanding the privilege that I have in this world. And I had looked back and said, gosh, I've worked hard. I've at that point built and sold 2 businesses, the credit card debt and everything, but yet I always had an advantage that I didn't deserve, nor was I aware of it. And so it was at that point that I spent a few years really, sort of saying to myself, how can I be a part of fixing that? And that's when I landed on my personal purpose to have an outsized positive impact on the world. And so from that point forward, the last, 7 or 8 years, I have made sure that everything that I do leans into that purpose. And when I get asked, like, what do you regret over your career? My typical answer had been nothing, because everything is a learning experience. I've made so many mistakes. I could write books and books on the mistakes I've made, but they all led me to getting better, right? And building a better business and being a better leader. But the one regret I have is not finding my purpose sooner in life and marching toward that, because now I define success very differently. I don't define it as, how big my bank account can get, or how big my company can get, or, how many boards I can sit on. It's how am I making an outsized positive impact? So that's the journey I would love for everybody, but certainly every young person to go through, is find your personal purpose, because it can guide your life, and it can give you that passion that you might think is in entrepreneurship, but it could be in anything, but you'll feel so much more fulfilled when you're marching toward it.
Do you feel that you needed to have those life experiences before you could really hone in on what was meaningful and important to you? Or do you think anybody can really find that?
I think it's probably helpful. I think if I had gone through that process when I was 20, I doubt I would have landed in the right place. So I do think you need some time to start to understand, what is the way I think about purpose. So I think about what is the thing that you're amazing at, that gives you energy, that you're great at, that you're in the top echelon of, and then what's the change you want to see in the world? And if you put those 2 things together, to me, that's where you find your purpose. So for me, it's to have an outsized positive impact. Outsized because my gift, the experiences that have led me to be able to build businesses to bring people along, that's why whatever I do needs to be outsized. And then it has to be a positive impact, because I'm benefiting from this society that's rewarding me, not because I've worked hard, not because I'm smart, because of the color of my skin, or because of my gender, or because of my religion. So all that privilege makes me have to make sure that what I'm doing is positively helping society.
So speaking of positively helping society, especially given what's going on these days we've got a pandemic, we've got riots in the streets. How do you think your personal purpose can have a larger impact maybe on your employees, or, you as a leader, how can you infuse that into the world around you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that, I'm a big believer that business should be a force for good in the world. Business is sort of the last place in our society that really has not been tapped to make the world a better place. And it has so much influence. Government organizations, if you're on one side of the political aisle or the other, you hate the other side. It's very polarized. Religion divides, everything divides people. Even nonprofits are poorly funded, don't get the attention, but corporations do. And if corporations can lean into doing good and making the world a better place, I think that's where the real change can come from. So definitely with my company, I think about our dragons, and how can I build empathy into them? How can I expose them to things like, everything we're going through right now with Black Lives Matter? I feel like it's part of my responsibility to make sure that my team is seeing those things, that we're having these conversations, because then we'll start to be able to add to the solutions. But until we see it, it's really hard to understand what the problem is, because most of my company is white, because most of my industry is white. And that's something we're also trying to tackle.
I think it's really great that you're trying to address it in such a purposeful way, but such a what's the word I'm looking for? Specific way. It's like intentional. That's the word I'm looking for. It's intentional. And I think we have to be right now. It can't just happenstance happen. We've been trying that for too long. So
yeah, and I think most of my peers, quite frankly, in the industry, are saying we're going to take our time, we're going to listen, we're going to wait, and that comes from a place of privilege. If you are not being affected by these things, you can wait. And so what we tried to do at Dragon Army was say, how can we get involved today, and how can we make not a 3-week or a 3-month plan, but a 3-year or even a 30-year? Like, how can we look at this and say, what are the things that we can do that are actually going to affect change that we can commit to? So, it's hard because I only see some of the privilege that I have, but reminding myself that, it's easy for me to go slow on some of these things has pushed me to move faster and to try to make change, maybe earlier than others.
So that leads us perfectly into you being an author. We're going to go back to that point.
Hey, there's my books.
These are the 2 books, all right? There are more on the way, all right? But these are the 2. This is the new one. So the 5-day turnaround and the crisis turnaround, they're amazing. Buy them. So in the newest book, the crisis turnaround, you talk about, having a financial plan and a financial runway in order to support employees. But I think what you're saying is there's also a different kind of plan that you can put in place for your company to support employees. It doesn't have to just be financial.
Yeah, and that book specifically is for if you're deep in a crisis, which usually means some sort of financial crisis. I think at Dragon Army, our purpose is to inspire happiness, and that's what everything leads toward that. So when we talk about having enough cash in the bank to weather a storm like we're in now, it's so that we can inspire happiness. In that example, in our team members. We work really hard to make sure that we're not just chasing growth as a company, for instance, and trying to be in the fastest growing companies in the city. As long as it's letting us do more good and live more into our purpose. So yeah, and again, that's something that before I went through Leadership Atlanta, and really we're 7 years into Dragon Army. It was probably 3 before I realized we should have a purpose, not just me have a purpose as the leader and try to infuse it into everyone, but how do I bring a purpose into the company? And now we redefine success. We literally say this year, how much happiness did we inspire? Not how much profit did we make? Not how much, revenue did we grow? But, and I'll say to you, one of the conversations I had with my team a few weeks ago was this year so far has been real tough. We're not hitting our goals, financial metrics. We're not growing the team, but I believe that the first 6 months of this year, we've done more good. We've helped a ton of nonprofits. We've done a lot of things to inspire happiness. So actually, we're on track to have a great year. So it's just reframing how you think about your business. And it goes back to that business should be a force for good in the world. And so we're trying to stay true to that as much as we can.
I think that's such an incredible life lesson that students can take, is reframing something that's happening. It might seem negative, but you can reframe what's going on and channel it into a very positive energy, which sounds like you have done with Dragon Army. And if companies like JP Morgan could figure out how to rechannel some of that, I think it would be amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so my role models from a business perspective are like Patagonia and Ben and Jerry's.
Yes,
these are two companies that are so focused. First of all, they're excellent in what they do, but they're willing to say, like Ben and Jerry's, you might get an email today on the 5 new flavors of, cookie dough ice cream. And then tomorrow you're going to get an email all about criminal justice reform and literally how you can get involved, and click this link so you can call your senator. I mean, it's amazing that they're willing to do that, knowing that there are people who are not going to buy their ice cream because of it, but they know they're trying to make a difference. So those are the companies. Used to be back in the day, I'd aspire for Apple and Google, but now I look at those types of companies and say, that's who we want to be.
I have to put up this comment. Jason is saying there are few people I would want to work on. Few people I would want to work under more than Jeff. His vision and people focus is something special. Jason, I totally agree with you on that. Jeff is one of a kind that way. So
it's easy with people like you around me to be that way. Jason's amazing. Yeah, that's very sweet.
Yeah. So Jeff, did you always want to write? Has that been your medium? Have you always been a writer?
It's interesting. When my second company, Engage, also an agency, was at the forefront of social media, I decided that what I needed to do was get into blogging and, tweeting and Facebooking. And so I started a blog simply to make sure that I knew how to sell social media to clients and develop it as a service for our company. And then I just fell in love with this idea of being able to write and, push things out into the world. I have ever since then wanted to write a book. And then a couple of years ago, I finally said, all right, it's time. Put pencil to paper or fingers to keyboard and pump it out. So we took our family to Scotland for a month and just got a small flat in Edinburgh. And I said, all right, every morning I'm going to write. And by the end of these 30 days, I want to have the first draft of the book. And I think with the day to spare, I finished the first draft. So that was the 5-day turnaround. Yeah.
And what a picturesque view for writing, right? With the castle. It's like the most beautiful, not ancient, but
medieval. It's amazing.
Medieval. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to take a question. We've got a few coming in. Stephen would like to know, was there a career setback you faced which you later realized was an advantage?
Oh my gosh. It's like Stephen teed me up. Yeah. So right out of the gate, this is actually the first big lesson in the 5-day turnaround. The 5-day turnaround is a book for leaders who either are entrepreneurs or are not, to embrace the mindset of an entrepreneur. Year one of my first small business, I was 22 years old. We landed a huge contract. The biggest website we had built up to that point was a $250, literally $250 that we got paid to build a website. We got a signed contract for a $65,000 website project. I can't even do the math on the multiples bigger than our previous biggest website. So we got office space. We hired another employee. We all quit our jobs. I was coaching tennis during the days, coding at night, quit that. And about 3 months in, that company reached out to us and said, you know what? We're actually going to cancel this project. We're going out of business. And they had never paid us a dime. So at that point, I thought we were done. I thought it was the worst thing in the world that could happen. Looking back, what that forced us to do was to be all in on building our business. Up until then, I was coaching tennis. One of my partners was waiting tables. Another was a bartender, and at night. And so we would almost like halfway be building our business. And it's really hard to do something exceptional. So what that did was it forced us to be all in. So when I talk to leaders today, I try to impress upon them that you can't have a plan B. You have to be all in on what you're doing. So, you know, if you're trying to start a company and you're a young person, I think save up a little and then do it full time. Don't try to do it on nights and weekends. It's way too easy not to do it. So again, that was something where, you know, 3 years later, I would have told you it was the worst thing ever. But with hindsight, I think it's the only reason I'm still an entrepreneur, to be honest.
Yeah. Did you ever think about working for someone else or going corporate? Did that opportunity ever even present itself? Not really.
No, I really didn't. And then my one time for 5 years after I sold SpawnLogic, the first company, I was helping to run the next company, but it was really owned by a private equity group. I was on the board and had some influence, but it wasn't my company. And while I enjoyed aspects of that, I said to myself, I have to have my own thing for forever. I was just broken. I'm broken. When you start at 21 in your own company and then you do that for 10 years, you're just sort of broken. You have to keep doing it.
Yeah. I like to think of it as special, not broken.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I like special.
You develop a special skill set that maybe does not fit within the other way of thinking, which is what your book is about.
It is.
So, yeah. Okay. So Lauren would like to know which has been more valuable in your career, your education or your experience?
Oh, wow. I never want to downplay education. I think education is incredibly important, and not just because of the things you study, but because of you're learning how to become an adult. Without my education, I never would have started my first company or met my partner. And but there's really no playbook for entrepreneurship, in my opinion. It's experience is the number one thing. So I have to go with experience. But I think having that foundation of a college education helped me in ways that I'll never know. So, but I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to start. You've got the name of my blog is Begin the Begin, because it's like you've got to start going and to get that experience. So I'll give a slight nod to experience.
Okay, that's fair. So Arthi is joining us, and she wants to go back to the question or the topic that we were talking about being all in. She says, what do you say to people who are older and have commitments? All in or hedge bets?
Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky. I think if you're trying to build a company, so here's the thing. There are not any things that you will do in your life that are more likely to fail than starting a company. The odds are stacked against you. It is incredibly difficult to be successful. So trying to do it on the side, you're trying to defy even the most difficult odds. So I would ask the question, if you're later in life and you have other commitments, what are you trying to solve by starting a business? What itch are you trying to scratch? And can it be done potentially with something smaller, something different? That's where I go back to purpose. If you know your purpose, it can guide you. And maybe you think, oh, I was thinking about this through a different lens. I can actually get involved in these organizations, or maybe even do this with my children instead of having to start a company. So I'm hurting the answer because I think it's a lot to say to somebody, yeah, you should quit everything and start a business when you have all these commitments. I would never say that to somebody. So I don't know if that's helpful, Artie, but that's the best I got.
And I think, some part of privilege comes in too, right? I mean, where, you have opportunities maybe that other people don't have. And so, they may not have the luxury of just working so hard and having it work out, Unfortunately, life these days is not set up for everybody getting equal opportunities. So hopefully we'll get there, though. Hopefully we'll get there.
Hopefully.
Sherry would like to know if you could do different, what would you do differently if you could go back in time?
Yeah, so I would definitely have found my purpose earlier. But since I already said that, I would have when I started my first company, we wanted to make sure that it was a great place to work, that we were having fun, but we never defined our culture. We never really defined our values. And I think that would have helped us along the way. So I'm a big believer. One of my role models is Charles Brewer, who started MindSpring here in Atlanta. And he actually, 6 months before he started his company, landed on his company's mission, vision. He's got 5 letters that he uses: core values, beliefs. He knew what his company was going to stand for before he even knew what it was going to do. So I wish I had done that earlier in my life, really focused on the culture even more than I think I did, because it's about people. And so you can lose sight of that as you're building a business. And I wish I had done that a little bit better earlier.
Yeah. Actually, Nathan is asking who inspires you. So would that be Charles Brewer or?
You know what? I take lots of different cues from lots of different people. I'm not saying this just because you're interviewing me, but I talked recently about your father. And so between you and your father, like, I draw inspiration from both of you. And everybody should read the book, Close the Loop, about your father. Unbelievable story. I think from you as an example, I think there's a light that emanates from you in everything that you do. You bring positivity, and so that's something, like, I try to take that little bit. My personal hero is Bobby Kennedy. And if you read about Bobby, he had all the privilege, potentially even more than me. He was born a Kennedy. The last couple of years of his life before he was assassinated, he completely transformed and was only trying to help people less privileged than himself, and putting everything on the line to do that, and was running for president. And so reading his transformation resonates with me, and I see him as somebody that I can aspire to be more like. So there's definitely people. I mean, you had Ambassador Young on. I've read a book about him and certainly met him a few times. So I draw a little bit from different people who inspire me. I'll be honest, I used to answer that question with, like, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. Bill Gates now, by the way, is amazing. I mean, talk about a transformation. He may,
like, he's a rock star in every sense of the word.
He is putting his amazingness and his resources 100% to make the world a better place. So he is a huge inspiration to me. So it's definitely flipped where I look for those types of people to sort of draw energy from.
And I do love that Bill Gates is educated about what he's trying to fund, right? It's not just that he's throwing money at things. He's really trying to personally give of his time to really advance his stuff. So I think he's great. I don't know if you read the comment, but Jason is saying, Jason Abdo.
Yep.
You rock, man. Just ordered the new book. Can't wait to get it. P.S. Miss the beard.
Jason's amazing. Again, I've been fortunate enough to have super amazing people hang out with me that are happy to say nice things about me.
We have a lot of comments and a lot of questions coming in. I am not surprised at all. Okay, let's take another student question. Brian would like to know, this is a good one for you. I don't know if you knew this. What books should I be reading?
Wow. Okay. Do we know anything else about Brian?
Brian, tell us something about you. Keep going.
I'll give a couple of books that Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I would watch videos on Simon Sinek about purpose. Again, to me, that's the thing that changed my life the most. Gosh, I would read a book about Bobby Kennedy. There's plenty out there. But it really depends. If you're looking to start a company, if you're looking to be a better leader, if you're just looking to be inspired, honestly, I'm going to have to recommend the book about your father, Close the Loop. And again, I'm trying not to pander, but like I find it to be a book about how to be an amazing human, how to be a great leader. I mean, started from nothing, became this amazing leader in society, gave back, it's also like a great story, because he met all these incredible people. Like, it's almost like unbelievable. So anyways, it would be hard for you to say, Brian, something about yourself that you're trying to learn through a book and me not recommend that one. So that's the easy answer.
Well, I did not set him up to say that, but thanks, Jeff. That's very nice of you.
The truth.
Okay. We've got so many coming in. All right. I think we'll take one more and we'll end on this one. Linda would like to know, what has been your biggest success factor?
Wow, success factor. I think
whether that's now or at the beginning, or
I think the thing that has remained true as I look back at everything that I've had success with, it has been that I have had people around me supporting me, and contributing, and like every business I've started, I have had partners. My wife, who we were high school sweethearts, has supported me, through thick and thin, and there was lots of thin. So I think it's that I've been super, super fortunate to have people around me support me and be there for me, and make me better and challenge me, because I have not done anything on my own. So surround yourself with good people, Linda.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And I think that includes mentors. Has mentorship played a big role in your life, Jeff?
Huge. Ken Bernhardt, who's one of the most important people in my life, allowed me to be his mentee probably 15 years ago. And I've had many over the years, but he's been somebody that has guided me every time I've had a tough decision over the last years. He's been there. So having people who are in your corner and supportive and willing to be honest, I think that's huge. But yes, absolutely, mentorship is a big deal.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're going to end there, but I also want to mention that Jeff and I will both be speaking on August 6th as part of Synergy Works business luncheon. Jeff will be talking about, you'll be talking about your book, right? And
so yeah.
And we're going to be talking about change and everything going on these days. So don't forget to tune in for that. Check our social media. You can find everything you need to know about it there. We have amazing guests coming up. Martha Brooks is our next guest on SuperNova Commencements. She is currently the board chair for CARE, which is a huge international humanitarian organization.
You have to ask her about cruise ship.
Okay.
That's just a tip for you and for everybody. You want to tune in.
Okay. Tune in till next week. And then we have some great speakers lined up after that. So check the schedule that's posted. We would love for you to share what's going on with you and all the successes that you're having. So please leave us a comment. You can find us everywhere on the web, literally everywhere. So just Google SuperNova Commencements. And we want to wish you well and say congratulations one more time and remind you that it is a blessing to be a blessing. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.